Solve quadratic equations by the square root property. Now we're going to use the square root property when we have equations like this. If we have x squared equals 9, notice our variable is part of a perfect square. So x squared equals 9. Well, our goal is to find the values of x that make this true. And if we think about this, 3 squared is 9, but also negative 3 squared is 9. And therefore, we have two answers, x is 3 or x is negative 3. Let's think about x squared is 49. Using the square root property, that means we're going to isolate the perfect square on one side, the variable perfect square on one side, and then we're going to take the square root of both sides. So if I have the square root of x squared, that's going to give me plus or minus the square root of the numeric piece. We know that the square root of x squared is x, and then the square root of 49 is 7. So we're going to have x could be both positive and negative 7. Let's get to a little more than that. What if I have 2x squared plus 7 equals 57? Well, our first goal is to manipulate the equation to isolate the x squared variable. Right? We want to get the perfect square by itself. So let's do that. We're first going to subtract 7, and that gives us 2x squared equals 50. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 2 and get x squared equals 25. Now that I have isolated the perfect square, dealing with the variable, that allows me to take the square root of both sides. So I get the square root of x squared equals plus or minus the square root of 25. Therefore, x is either negative 5 or positive 5. Both of those make the equation true. Okay, let's continue on. If I have the equation 2 times the quantity x plus 3 squared equals 32. Well, in similar fashion, our goal is to manipulate the equation to isolate the squared term, the variable piece that is the perfect square. That is what we want to isolate. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2 to get the x plus 3 squared by itself. So that leaves me with x plus 3 squared equals 16, because 32 divided by 2 is 16. Now I'm ready to take the square root of both sides. That leaves me with the square root of x plus 3 squared equals plus or minus the square root of 16. Well, the square root of x plus 3 squared gives me x plus 3, and the square root of 16 is 4. So I now know that x plus 3 equals, well, either positive 4 or negative 4. We need to get x by itself. So we're going to split this into two equations. Either x plus 3 equals 4 or x plus 3 equals negative 4. To solve those, I simply subtract 3 from both sides. So I know that x equals 1 or x equals 7. So the goal when using the square root property, isolate the perfect square term by itself, then you're ready to take the square root of both sides. And remember, the numeric side of this needs to be a positive negative, plus minus, because both of those will make the equation true.